This is the world record speedrun for Psychonauts, completed in 30 minutes and 53 seconds by the user YP. And I'm going to attempt to break that record. The only difference is that I have never played Psychonauts. But I did watch hours of gameplay studying for this attempt. I studied 3 videos: the world record run, a full gameplay with cutscenes, and finally a speedrun guide, which I will talk about that speedrun guide later, but let's start the game. We start by creating a save with a name, which leaves me with only one option, obviously Steve. After typing our name, we are rudely interrupted by Sergeant Johnson himself. He tells us to be ready by 0600 tomorrow morning. As we go to bed, we wake up to the newspaper zombie from Plants vs. Zombies. He gives us the aiming tutorial like we're in the early 2000s playing Halo, but after we complete it, we go outside our cabin to start our next mission, Sergeant Johnson's basic braining. So a quick explanation for the game. You play as Steve, who is a psychonaut or a psychic. Each level we play is us inside someone else's brain, so the levels we play are what the characters are imagining. For instance, Sergeant Johnson's brain is basic braining. But back to the game. Admittedly, I wasn't as studied at the beginning of the run. You'll see this much later, I promise you. I tried mimicking the world record run, but without any real direction. I wasn't sure what paths I'm supposed to take and the buttons to press, but this is also the first level, so I shouldn't really struggle throughout this level. Okay, don't do that. See? Try doing some speedrun moves. Some parts of it are forcibly slow, they even mention it. Right here is where I start using some basic speedrun tricks I saw on the world record run. Simple things like jump over this to avoid climbing around it, and then just jump through these mines to get to the Super Mario pole. Then hit this door to skip the dialogue. After jumping out of the plane, we get a slapping tutorial, which isn't bad other than the annoying cheerleaders in the back.
Yay, Raz! Punch, punch, punch! Punch, punch, punch!
This next section does have a skip. You basically ground pound this area and it shoots you forward, and I wasn't sure how to do it, so we just did it the slow, intended way. We shut down the Hydra turret to get to our second Mario flag. We then start the next tutorial for swinging and jumping off of these turret barrels. Super safe to be doing at your summer camp. But after we get to this next section, there is a massive skip that uses the same mechanics as the previous one. I do attempt it with the little knowledge that I had, but I did not succeed. Did do here? Just kidding. So the long way it is. So a follow-up explanation on this game. It came out in 2005, and if you know late 90s and early 2000s games, you know that a lot of mechanics are clunky and weird, but also the game gives you almost zero direction on where to go and what to do. Honestly, it just bred people differently than the kids that we have playing games nowadays. We start grinding like an early 2000s Tony Hawk game, jump over this Ed, Edd, and Eddy character, and then get to our next area. Once again, there is a skip here that I do not do, so we just walk through this tumbler normally. We finish the mission, leaving Sergeant Johnson's brain, and then we try to do this skip. The skip uses the same mechanics as the other ones, so you'd think I'd give up by now, but we don't. I also didn't realize that the skip is that way we can avoid talking to these girls that require us to find an object. So I did waste some time talking to them to then just go find that object. But after getting past that, we need to go to the GPC, which stands for the Great Pounding Center. At least that's what I call it from all the poundings I get from in there. Come here. This is annoying as fuck. Now that we're in the GPC, we find out that it's the lab for an agent Sasha 9. Just looks like an emo German fellow that should not be inside a kid's summer camp. He gives us access to our own brain so we can try to locate our own demons. Most of us would love that. Or some would dread doing that, but either way, we run into a monster that we can't defeat, so we need to head to Mr. Ford's laboratory where he makes trucks or something. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention here. I start talking to him, but do get stuck in the dialogue by saying the wrong things, but I eventually get my marksman badge. So we head back to Agent 9, but he needs us to do the tutorial first. So I do try some speedrun stuff, and it's a hit and miss. I do some successfully and others not so much. But after completing our 4th and final mini section, we get to our first boss fight. He's just this giant that runs at you with a stamp that you try to avoid. Then he throws a meatball from his stomach at you. It's actually disgusting. The objective is just to destroy all these poles that heal him, and then we can just go hit him. The world record run makes this seem so much easier than it actually is. You'll see this consistently throughout the run, of course. The worst part of this is that if you get hit by his stamp, he fully picks you up and you have to wait for his dialogue so you can jump off. It's a total waste of time. After finishing him off, we have to go back into our head, but of course I mess up and go into the wrong door. So back to the lab and then go into our brain. We get back to that monster, but we do get to destroy him this time. We keep following this bunny, just avoiding enemies, till we start climbing up this tree just to find out that we're missing another ability. But this time we do a simple speedrun trick. We do a double fast travel, but it doesn't work for me. So we jump out and start looking for the lake. After getting there, we try doing one other speedrun jump that uses the same mechanics as the other ones, so I can't do it. But our goal is to get to this yoga class in the middle of the lake. Follow-up story explanation. Steve thinks his dad hates him for being a psychonaut because a psychic put a curse on them that they will all die in water. So basically, I can't just jump across the lake, otherwise we'll die. So we go talk to this other newspaper zombie, and he tells us where the canoes are. After getting in the canoe, we get to the yoga class, which is ran by Lola from Shark Tales. She gives us our magical yoga ball, and we need to traverse her mind to help get her yoga party started. With this ball, we can do a lot of skips, but I wasn't sure how to do the ones in here, so I was mostly lost, just trying to figure it out as we go. This next part I get stuck in was so frustrating, because in the world record speedrun, he just uses that ball to fly straight up, which I do learn how to do later, but at this moment I don't know how to do it. But when I do the correct thing, it doesn't work. So after getting back up there, I try to do it again, and it works. This game just screams 2005. I did that. Dude, games back in the day just... But after clearing out that section, we go into this race, which is just a ripoff from the SpongeBob games. After finishing that, we make these wheels spin to move on to the next area, which finishes up the level. So back to the creepy Russian emo's lab we go. We go back into our brain, but this time we start at the bottom of the tree, and then we climb our way back up. We use the ball to levitate up the tree to save this boy whose brain was abducted, which makes him addicted to TV. Just like the current generation. On to our next boss fight, which is the kid's brain inside this tank. It's pretty easy. We shoot his stomach, then go melee it. He tries to shoot us with his confusion grenade, which literally flips your screen horizontally, and it's actually quite difficult when it hits you the first couple of times. But it's also confusing even after you've been hit a handful of times, and you need to hit the boss just one more time, but that's besides the point, okay? So we defeat that boss just for its brain to fall out, and then we have an equally annoying boss with the confusion grenades and a spinning radar it doesn't miss, okay? It's very frustrating. We slowly get through it though and move on to the next level. There's now a missing girl who was taken by the lake monster. I almost forgot what to do here till I saw the diving suit from SpongeBob and then remembered where to go. We head down to the bottom of the lake with a bubble of air, of course, just to fight off this disgusting, vile, monstrous monster, which is conveniently from Finding Nemo. This level consists of a lot of waiting. We do have to ring this bell to call the monster, then the monster tries to suck us off of the ground and into their mouth, so we have to hit these boxes of nails to fly into their mouth. Thank God lakes are just full of boxes of nails, am I right? I don't know. We then follow the monster while inside our bubble. Still just doing some general platforming, we get to another nail sequence just to continue following the monster. This is when the camera angle freaks out because of the outdated technology where it's directly above you, and it's such a mess, and I get so frustrated. What the fuck is... my God. We get to the final sequence where we need to have the monster throw its light thingy inside the clam thingies from Mario. Trust the words that I'm saying. I am the expert, okay? But after defeating it, we want to enter its brain to get to the bottom of this. We use one of the monster's ink doors to enter his brain. It takes us to his dream of stomping through a town, destroying everything. A classic Godzilla vs. Kong type mission. There's tons of tanks, missile launchers, and laser beams all trying to focus us. Honestly, a lot easier to watch than actually do. Of course, I'm mindlessly running in a straight line, just hoping for the best. I eventually actually play the game and start destroying everything, and then get to jump off the Goodyear blimp to move on to the next section. This is where we really get to do some Kong stuff because we need to climb some buildings. Then when we're on top of them, we then shoot some flying planes around us. After we defeat them, we head to the radio tower that's causing all of this chaos. Now we get to fight off the monster that was in charge of this monster. Monception, if you ask me. This boss is fairly easy. He says his attacks before doing them, but at first I'm not using my armor lock ability that I quite frankly have no idea how we got. It just seems like we got the ability at the start of the mission, I guess? But just like in Halo Reach, this ability is stupidly strong, and after I figure that out, the boss becomes very easy. But after defeating him, we are greeted by that horrific monster from Nemo again. But this time, it's just talking to us and thanking us. It explains that it was under mind control of the boss we just killed. We ask for it to take us to the lost girl, Lily, and it does. It also gives me a horn to be able to use to go across the lake, and it tells me its name.
The name given to me by my people And what name is that, noble lake creature? What a magical lady.
Well, now that we know that her name is Linda, I feel bad for all the mean things I've said about her. All right, this is our intermission section. If you don't know already, no, I'm not actually going for the world record. I'm just playing this game with the intent of beating it as fast as I can. With that being said, the second half of the video will be from the following day. So this is the start of the second day, but I am much more prepared. Kind of. You'll see what I mean in a moment. This is when I start using the speedrun guide video, and that has helped me tons because someone was very much telling me what to do and why to do it. For example, I start using that balloon to fly right away. Well, kind of right away. But I also learned that I needed two things. I need to get to level 20, and I need to buy a cobweb duster, which becomes a secondary issue down the road, and you'll see that when we get there. So instead of heading to the next mission, we go back to the main camp to get some levels and arrowheads. I haven't explained what both of those do yet, but basically, you level up by finding cards that float around an eyeball, or by collecting those floating sketches from Chalk Zone. So with me being a level 13, going to 20 was going to take a second. Now the reason we need to get to level 20 is that we unlock new abilities after reaching a certain level, and we need the level 20 ability to beat a boss later in the game. Next are the arrowheads, which is basically the in-game currency. You'll see them in the ground, they're just the little purple sparkles coming out of it. I need 800 of them for the cobweb duster, which is great because I have 54. Yeah, if I knew all this earlier, I would have been working on that the entire time. The cobweb duster is used to clean up these pink webs around the levels. We need this to get to the final level of the game. What makes things much easier is that we've reached a point in the game where it's nighttime. What that means is that there are now mountain lions and bears that have psychic powers and will kill you. A lot. But I had some strategies. At first, I was going to just do some general running around the main area to get some levels there. Then I was going to go to the shop to get the dowsing rod, which is just a metal detector for arrowheads. But it goes deeper into the ground to find more valuable arrowheads that are worth more than just like 1 or 2 currency, if that makes any sense. But after seeing the value, I knew it was worth the 50 arrowheads. We can get anywhere from 20 to 100 plus arrowheads based off of what I am seeing. So that solved the money problem, but I need to get to level 20 before purchasing the cobweb duster. That's when I remember that there are lots of Chalk Zone sketches in my brain. So that's where we started. And that worked out great. Got myself all the way to level 19 and I can finish off the last level in the next mission, which is not gonna bite me in the ass later. So I went back to the lake, had Linda take us across it, and onward to the next level. This is when the speedrun tech really comes into play. We start in his room where he is insane talking to himself about this Milkman, which just sounds like a villain from Codename Kids Next Door if you ask me. We leave his house to this neighborhood that has a bunch of detectives. We're going to just ignore most of them as they require you to have certain items in your hand to walk by them. But basically we use our magic yoga ball to jump across this gap, fly at the end, and then that just skips most of those detectives I was talking about. Now we need to go through this manhole cover, but without a plunger, we can't do that. So we just float under the street and enter it that way. This next skip would require us to have a fake gun and a telephone. So instead, we just fly above and get on the telephone wire without all of that. We get to this house, which involves another skip. So what you're supposed to do here is use an invisibility ability, but we didn't level up enough for that. So hiding, shooting the girl, and then walking in is the obvious move. After getting in, we start a fight with this crazy lady with a bunch of robot children. Basically, she was predicting what the future will be for lonely people that can just get AI children. Yeah, I'm scared of the future too. This fight wasn't terrible, but I once again did not get an ability that I needed. Basically, there's a telekinesis ability that lets us pick things up. So we would hit her 3 times, use the ability to glitch this kind of like dark zone phase that she has, and like we can't see anything near it. So instead we have to play the fight normally, which is really not that bad. All right, on to our next skips that I do out of order a little bit. There's a skip called LSD, which is where you do a save load while in a loading zone. I get it first try, which is amazing, but I don't have telekinesis, so that does us no good. And since I already did the LSD, I can't really go back. So now I have to use my massive brain to get telekinesis. Back to Ford's lab we go. So I head back to Ford's lab, do my little tutorial, and then get back to my mission, which puts me in a different kind of like wrong area because the LSD I did earlier. Normally we play this mission and have some boss fights, but if I did things correctly, we would skip these levels. So now I do some reverts to some old saves. After going back to an old save, I do the telekinesis training again and then head back to do that first LSD. This time works a little differently though, because I've done it once before. So I have to do a different trick. This time we spawn in clipping through the ground, so we just need to do our little flying mechanic and walk into a certain corner. After successfully doing it, we can continue on with our skips and fight this somewhat difficult boss. He's truthfully not that bad, but to hit him you have to time your destruction of these blocks with the setting of the wood on fire, then throwing a block through the crack that you just made. I think you can understand why it's kind of a pain in the butt. We eventually destroy the boss, but my brain gets thrown out of my head. So obviously I combine my brain with the one that was in the tank, creating one super brain called Harry and Lloyd. We finally get to go to the final mission now, but this is where I completely forgot that I needed to buy that cobweb duster that I worked so hard to get. After a couple attempts, I realized what's most painful about this part is that I wasn't going to be able to finish the run. I was in this endless loop of going to the caravan or going to the level select. The run was over. Or so I thought. I once again called into my big brain and made the decision to load back to my LSD section that was broken. But this ended up working because I could go to Ford's lab and then use the mine shaft to head back to the main camp and purchase the cobweb duster. But I was still worried. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to get back to that boss fight. But then I clutched up again and used Ford to send me back. Did some more LSD, got super high, then dropped down low again. All literally, of course, not in the drug sense. But it was at this point that I realized I needed to do that boss fight one more time, essentially wasting more and more time. The second round wasn't necessarily any easier than the first, but we persevere and combine brains again. This time we have our cobweb duster, so we can finally go to the next level. Probably one of the creepier levels in the game, but at least there's a good amount of skips, and it would be a lot easier if I did them properly. I don't know what the fuck just happened. We get it figured out and move on to a super creepy boss fight. Should have been easier than it actually was, but of course fighting a boss for the first time comes with its problems. But with almost no health, we clutch up one more time. There we go. Now, onto the strangest skip I've ever seen in a video game. But before I explain the skip, I'm going to explain what we are doing. So because I thought my dad hated me, he is one of the villains in this section. And we're in a carnival because my dad is a carny and he's trying to make me one as well. So pretty much being in this meat carnival with my dad fighting us is living hell for Steve. Now, why this skip is the strangest one is because Steve and his dad cannot share the same space at the same time. As in, we're not allowed to be clipped inside each other. So our goal is to ground pound this jump pad, which then has us grab onto this high bar at the same time your dad does. But after you land the ground pound, you just don't move. Then that ends the level. Like I said, it's really strange. But now we go back to the previous boss, but with some fire and some spikes, and everything is harder. I mean, what do I expect? Things to get easier? This fight was difficult, especially because I went in with 1 health. But after slowly healing up and throwing these spikes at the boss, we die. But we don't quit there. We go again and defeat him. Now, onto the final boss, which is actually easier than the last. So earlier, I tried predicting it to get easier and it was wrong, but then I was right later. Whatever. But to be fair, it's because this one could be cheesed with our armor lock, which is somehow more broken than it was in Halo Reach. And then that ends the run. Finally finished. Just under 3 hours. There it is. That is my speed run for Psychonauts. After never playing the game, only watching footage, I completed the game in 2 hours and 55 minutes, when the recommended playtime is like 9 hours, so cutting it down to a third. Not that bad, and as you guys saw, I made plenty of mistakes. Sorry if I sound totally different from the previous, segments of this video and everything like that. It is currently midnight. It is 11:51. And I was awake at 5 a.m. this morning. I've got to be awake at 5 a.m. tomorrow. And I've just been, and like last night, I was also up till midnight working on the video. I have been grinding to get you guys this video out. So I'm super excited for you guys to watch this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, please drop a like. It'd be much appreciated. Subscribe to see other content like this. I have already done the High on Life game and then now Psychonauts. And then I've got some more planned. So please stay tuned for those. Lastly, I do have the 3 videos that I watched, the world record run, the full gameplay, and the world record guide or like the speedrun guide. All of those will be linked down in the description. Please go check them out. Please go like their video, everything like that, because that was how I made this video, right? So give them some support, as that's what directly helped me make this video. But enough of this. I need to render this, upload it, get all going before I've got to go to work tomorrow at 6 a.m. So yeah, please like, subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.